So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Biz Talk, the podcast for aspiring and existing entrepreneurs and business owners. My name is Adi Shikoya, and as always, I'm the host who's just here to kind of speak to some people, interview guests who are doing stuff in the community and globally as well, but also to provide a platform for us to learn something. Because I don't know about you, but me personally, I always like to learn new things. I like it when I go, oh, wow, all right, that makes sense. And yeah, this show is about educating, motivating, and inspiring you to go out there and be all you can be and live your dreams. Because, live life to the fullest. That's what I say. And so, without further ado, today I got a guest with me. His name is Marshall Medi. Hope I pronounced that right?
Marshall Medi, that's right indeed.
Marshall Medi, so apologies. Yeah. Marshall, well, I call him the idea protector. But first of all, I'm going to let Marshall tell us a little bit about himself as we look at the things you need to know before you share any of your business idea with anyone out there. But Marshall, thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate it. Invite Art. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you, and yeah, pleasure to be with your crowd and your platform. I appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Adi, about myself, my name is Marshall Medi, as you already mentioned, and I was born in Cameroon. For those of you who know Central Africa, and I've been living in the UK for 14 years. My background initially is engineering. I studied mechanical engineering at university. Then after coming straight out from university, I went into working into fintech and investment. So from fintech and investment, of course, then I kind of discovered my passion. When I was working on a particular project, funny enough, that has to do with a startup company in Cameroon. And then from that, I kind of realized some of the companies out there, they need a bit some help in terms of being able to raise capital, and also in terms of protecting the value that they are creating. And from that moment, that's where actually the history of the company, Seed Management, started. That's where we started, and of course, that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. And literally, that's my story. I'm a geek, I grew up studying science, and of course, from then came to London, the financial capital of the world, and from science to money investment to discovering the power of intellectual property when it comes to actually building long-term value. And awesome. That's something that I believe, it's something that drives me. That's something that I enjoy doing.
Oh, wow. So here's a couple of things that I heard that I would just like to explore before we go into management.
Sure, of course.
I heard the word passion. What is your passion?
Yeah. My passion is to help people. My passion is to help people. My passion is to help people make the most of themselves. So since I'm a kid, I've always been passionate in science and about the power of science to change people, not to make things happen. Science, innovation, creativity. I was being a very creative person, so I used to draw a lot when I was a kid. I used to paint, to sing and dance. I used to act when I was a kid, so I've always been very creative. And so my creative side and my geeky side, my science side, that's what drives me. Those are my passion. Wow. So I kind of find a way to combine my passion and by working on something that really, really helps me, I really enjoy. And when we talk about IP, when we talk about creativity, we talk about science, we talk about the brilliance of the human mind and what we can achieve as person and as individual. And that's what passionate me. People passionate me. The mind, the human mind passionate me. The human creativity passionate me.
I love that, man. And I love the fact that you're talking about creativity and you're talking there about singing and dancing and all that stuff. I can't do those things anymore. When I was young, I was a great singer. And the thing is, there was nothing wrong with my singing. I think everybody around me's hearing was a bit flawed. It was off tune. So they just really couldn't get it. So I had to take a different part in life. But okay, I really like that. So based on that level of creativity, that's also got you looking at how you can add value to other people's lives, which is awesome. And what you're about to share is going to add value to so many people's lives. So when we talk about intellectual property, for those who are watching right now who might be like, because that can sometimes be a little bit of a confusing area as to what do we mean, what's the scope of intellectual property, what can I protect? Please, what is classified as intellectual property?
So intellectual property is a term that kind of englobe many concepts that comes from the mind. What your mind creates and what your creativity. So intellectual property is a form of intangibles. The intellectual property are intangible. So think about, for example, everything that you can imagine, any idea that you have.
Right.
Your ideas are your intellectual property, and of course, once you protect the ideas, then you get the right to exploit them. To be the only one to exploit them, then become rights. So intellectual property could be anything. It could be something that you draw. It could be something that you invent. There's something a unique concept that you come across with, and they tend to be classified in different kind of different classes. So depending on what type of invention or creativity we're talking about. So if you look at, for example, copyright, which is a form of intellectual property that mostly covered creations such as music, drawings, written words, and graphics. So kind of all that creative part, the artistic part, tend to fall into copyright. And then of course we have trademarks that have to do with the brand that we created for business purpose. So whenever, like, for example, this amazing brand, which is Circulate, the Circulate.co.uk is an amazing brand that you're building. And of
Thank
course,
you.
that's a brand that you have to trademark if you haven't done so. And just to make sure that that value that you created is represented and is kept within that brand. So we have copyright, we have trademarks that applies to business and brand. We have patent that apply to invention and unique concepts. Patents tend to be the one that people tend to know the most because whenever you think about invention, think about patent, have a patent for something, of course, and patent can also be very valuable for those that invent them, that hold them. And we also have other type of right that know as well known, such as design right for unique design that has to do maybe with machineries or anything that has to do maybe like a cup, a mug, or some of the clothing that we love, some of the fashion. I remember if anyone in your audience that within fashion, they will know that some of the fashion brand they have unique designs, and those designs you can also protect them, and because they're very creative, and that's also a sort of intellectual property that also falls with intellectual property. So, kind of to summarize, intellectual property is something very broad, but let's just look at it at all everything that comes from the mind, every creation that comes from the mind, and that comes from creativity. That's how I would
Wow.
summarize it.
And I love the way that you put that. It's intangible, and I guess that's why a lot of people potentially, that was definitely indeed myself for a long while, struggle to really understand that what the importance of intellectual property is, and actually the wide range of things that you can protect in that sense, because like you said, it's intangible and it's from the mind, and as all of us know, the mind is limitless. I mean, the mind can come up with some stuff, but if you think about it, right, even if you think about music, this is me, I'm sometimes like I go into spaces, right, like music, right, there's only a certain number of bars, but look how much music has been created throughout eternity, which actually
That's
is
true.
original. It's just like, wow.
The mine is the gold mine. That's the term, a very old term, a very old quote. Can't remember who quoted it, but the mine is the gold mine. Now, whatever your mind can create, and that's something that's unique to you. And of course, we have instances where other people's come up with the similar ideas, but the mine is the gold mine. And once we start appreciating the mine, everything that comes from our mind, then we can appreciate that value. Then we can utilize that value to really change the world and to build on wealth as well. And it's very important to protect that value, especially if your business is somebody that use that value to kind of create, to sell to other people, to create a business. It's very
Awesome.
important to create that value.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, it just reminded me of a biblical quote that says, "As a man thinketh, or as a person thinketh, so shall they be." So, in effect,
Indeed.
everything that we do, we create here first before we can make manifest in the world, and it makes sense to protect that. But I guess it also makes sense to protect this as well, right? Because this is like the source. This is the engine to
Well,
protect the
you have to feed your mind with the good stuff. You don't
mind.
sow proper seeds in your mind so they can grow the good fruits.
Hmm.
As a Man Thinker, which is actually one of my favorite books by James Allen. The title of one of my favorite books by James Allen. It's an amazing book, and yeah, definitely the mind. I mean, the mind is the gold mine. I mean, if you look, as you mentioned before, into music, the creativity, human creativity has no limit, and being able to capitalize on that creativity to create wealth and to create happiness for people. That's something that's something that more that's something I enjoy. Um, as I mentioned earlier about my background, I was born in Cameroon. In Africa, we don't really have that much understanding of IP, and we suffer a lot historically because of the lack of understanding when it comes to IP. So, however, we tend to be very creative down there. So
very,
yeah,
very creative. I mean, I'm from Nigeria, right? So like creativity is in the bones. Remember I told you
indeed,
before I could sing and other people couldn't hear? That's their bag. That was nothing to do with me. But yes, in general, we are very creative continent, and each of the individual countries creative. But the reality is people all around the world are creative in their own ways, right?
that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
awesome, great stuff. So how prevalent or common is one other quick thing, just so to all you listeners out there, Ade here having a conversation with Marshall here. We're talking about intellectual property, the mind, and all things connected. So just to say, wherever you're watching, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on any of the Facebook channels, if you've got any questions, comments, or inputs to this conversation, please feel free to just put it in the comment sections under wherever you're watching this video right now, and it will come through on the interface here. We can, involve you in that conversation. If you've got any questions for Marshall, maybe you've got some specifics in regards to what you're dealing with in terms of an idea, that would be a good opportunity for us to have that involve you in the conversation, because that's what this is about. It's a conversation. But anyway, so Marshall, how prevalent or common is IP theft, and what would you say typically is the personal cost to individuals? Because we're talking about something intangible, right? So like,
Yes, we are. We are. We are. To give it a personal cost per individual kind of differ, but what we know by the data that we have, particularly here in the UK, IP theft costs the UK economy £9 billion a year.
Eish.
9 billion pound a year. So
And
IP is a very big issue. Most people, they don't really realize how IP theft affect them. Of course, we use counterfeit products, from just, it could be anything. It could literally be somebody copying your brand. Imagine somebody start making a different show called circulates. How would that affect you? How would you quantify that? So that's something that sometimes is very difficult to quantify, but the numbers are out there. It costs about £9 billion to the UK economy in IP theft every year, and a lot more to the global economy. So we're talking about very, very significant numbers. Very significant numbers. And yeah,
well, £9 billion sounds like a lot a year. Sounds like a lot of money in
it
terms
is a
of
lot of money. It is a lot of money.
intangible loss of assets. I've been trying to get my head around that intangible loss of assets. Wow. And that potential could be like infinite, right? Because you don't know how somebody could have made some money from an idea, reinvested that money somewhere else, done some more stuff.
Exactly. So the cascade effect is also very important, very significant, because of course, from one idea you can have so many other products that can be born, and just from one IP you can have so much more. You can maximize the IP. So there's so many cases here in the UK, and you into music. There's so many cases in music. For example, in America, and even lately, there was a case for Beyonce looking to trademark the name of her daughter, Evie Blue Evie. That was one of those cases where, of course, she fought so hard to be able to trademark that, because once she had the IP, then she can utilize it to sell out the product, and of course keep that value for a daughter as the daughter is going to grow. So it is very important. You never know, even your name is something very valuable. You have to protect.
Of course, why not now? Adeshokoya. Of course. It's a very valuable name, as is everybody else's name as well.
It is indeed. So yeah, IP is very, very important, and it does.
Good
Um,
show.
it does, and it's not just the money aspect of it. If you look, when we look at global stage, between companies, companies stealing each other. I mean, if you're into technology, you also remember the big case between Apple and Samsung. When Apple and Samsung, they were fighting to who's gonna be the brand that's gonna dominate the mobile phone market. There was lots of suing that happened. There was legal cases that happened between them, because of course the other one would say, no, you stole my IP, no, you stole my IP, you copied my camera, no, you copied my other lens, my screen, and just a little back and forth. And even looking at the even bigger stage, in terms of countries stealing each other IP all the time. And a major case is between China and the US. One of the reasons why China has developed so quickly, because of course they accuse China of stealing IP from the US, and the value right now is around close to 600 billion worth of IP stolen by China. That's China stolen to the US, and that can lead to very, very important tension. That can even lead to war. People fight over IP all the time, and that can lead to war. So, and in particular, political tension and tension at global stage as well.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I guess when you put it that way as well, because even when you just start talking about war, just start thinking about like the Cold Wars and spying, all of that really is stealing intellectual property, right? Ah, they know
It is all about stealing intellectual property.
maybe still there once I understand how it works. Awesome. So there's something that we was talking about there, kind of tongue in cheek about, trademarking names. And then we're speaking a bit about technology. I want to combine the two of those together right now. So, in effect, say like for example, somebody takes out a website, because this is now where we start bringing it to something more tangible for the listeners out there. Let's say somebody has a website, like for example, adeshakoya.com. Is that some form of copyright involved in that, or how does that work for people?
It is, first of all, the name of your website. For example, I'm going to give you the bigger brand, for example, Coca-Cola, for example, they have coca-cola.com.co.uk, all of them on the Coca-Cola. So you will never be able to have to own any website that might be called, whose name might start with Coca-Cola. So literally, bigger brand, of course, what they do protect all of those names. So that name will never be available to a third party. And if that name were to become available, any of the domain name were to become available to the third party, they could actually go and sue them. They say, okay, you know what, we own this name, you cannot use it. In your case, you have to make sure that all the domain name, they're protected. So that you need to make sure that nobody can purchase either the .co.uk or the .io or the .fa of your domain name. So of course, it will depend on your budget and of course on how big you are and what's your long-term strategy. But usually that's something that you can always fight. If somebody were to use a similar domain name, you can go say, okay, I was the first one to use that domain name. It's affecting my brand. That's something that you have to fight.
Okay,
Domain name are
cool.
very important, but when it comes to actually the content of your website, that's where the copyright kicks in. So sometimes you have people that create fake websites. It happen a lot online. Or somebody will create a fake website so they can take your traffic, they can start selling fake products, and and eat your lunch. So that's also something that you can challenge, and something that you always need to keep in mind. Need to keep in mind when you're online. You need to keep in mind that there's no other fake website that are using your intellectual property to sell different services to and eating into your market. So it is an important matter also for website. Very crucial.
Awesome. And I like what you said there about eating lunch. Me, I don't like anybody to eat my lunch. So yeah, you do all the hard work, you build your brand, they come along, they build a new website, and then they just take all your traffic and take everything that you hard work for, Abby.
It is that happen very often. That happen very often, more often than we are aware of. And even to the big banks, to even into the big bank like Santander, they have all these issues all the time. Like people create fake accounts on fake website and use
Sure.
those websites to steal customers use information.
Yeah, sure. It's been odd. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a tangent, but I think it's related. But it's been odd of lately. It's like in the last like 3 weeks, I've become like a multi billionaire. The amount of emails I keep on getting that, oh, Mr. Shikoya, there's XX amount of money, millions in your this account. Just click here to come and claim it. Do you know what I mean? A couple of times I've written out some letters to my clients to say, you know what, I'm done here. I'm gone. I'm going on holiday. But I figured maybe let me just wait because these guys. So yeah, everyone's just sending out this stuff and telling you click here, click there. But in effect, this is a form of kind of what you're talking about, right? Where
It
people,
is. It is. It was like it's piracy. We are copyright theft. We have so many things that goes into when it comes to stealing tangible, and even cybercrime. Cybercrime is also a big part of IP theft. When somebody's trying to steal information through online media using computer and or hacking. Cybercrime is a very very big issue as well. And the main point of cybercrime is all about stealing IP, stealing somebody information, stealing somebody data, stealing somebody money from your bank account. And it is also something of very, very big. And as the world become more and more digitalized, so as we go from not just the physical world to the digital world, more website, more people selling online, more people buying online, this probably is only going to exacerbate and people need to really realize the importance and take the right measure to protect themselves.
I think you hit a key point there. As the world becomes much more digitalized, much more technology driven, we was already on that trajectory for like the last 10 or so years. So many of you would know that that's my background as an agile consultant working with organizations to help them to take physical products and services and digitalize them. So in effect, what agile really is just simply reducing the cost and the risk and time effort associated with building a business and reducing the risk associated with that. So yeah, that's been but now that we're kind of in the fourth industrial revolution, right? Everything's becoming digitalized, right? And what it sounds like you're saying is that intellectual property becomes even more important.
It does become more important. And when we look at the global economy, I mean, back in the days, the big chunk of the global economy was mostly physical product. But nowadays, when we look at the value created, it's mostly intangible and it's mostly IP. So right now, across the board, IP represent close to 70% of the global economy. So 70% of the value created, I mean, some space in some places like in the States is even higher. So the more advanced an economy becomes, the more it relies on IP and intellectual property. And of course, the more money they put intellectual property and research, protecting and managing the IP. So that is true. And of course, in maybe 100 years time, it will be things won't cost as much, but IP costs a lot.
Let's actually try and start quantifying some of those things there, just for some of our listeners, so we can kind of get in a sense of what we're potentially talking about here in terms of ideas and what the financial rewards can be. So I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe you can remember. Maybe somebody out there can remember as well. They can type it in chat. How much was Instagram sold for?
I believe Instagram, when it was sold to Facebook, it was a couple of billions, if I'm not mistaken. I remember WhatsApp was sold for 4 billions. I remember that one.
There you go.
And
WhatsApp,
WhatsApp was sold for
4 billion.
4 billion. I remember that one. Instagram, couple of billions. Sold for a
And now
couple
we
of
got the
billions.
new kid on the block right now. Clubhouse is just rocking up the place. It's going from
Yes, I
valuation
just
to
got on
valuation very
Clubhouse.
quickly.
I just got on Clubhouse actually a couple of weeks ago. I'm yet to engage with people there, but it seemed like a very interesting platform.
Well,
Very
yeah, I
interesting
think the
platform.
last I heard is already it's been valued at, and maybe somebody who knows the exact data can type it in there, but in it close to around the billion mark already. But the reason why I'm talking about this is just think about it. They're all like ideas. That's just somebody's idea, right? That they've
It
just
is indeed.
created and built. And like you said, there, if it's not intellectually, if we don't protect our idea. So the key thing here and what's relevant to those who are watching right now, whatever your idea is, try and get it protected. Because guess what? You don't know when it might come into manifestation, right? And you just don't know what it's worth. But I've got a quick question for you, Maddie. Actually, before I go to my question, we've got a question for somebody here. So, hello, user. Sorry, I can't see your names here. If you are on Facebook, I think there's going to be an option where it says to allow your name to come through. So, if you choose that option, then I can see it. But we've got a question here. Pelethon and Mad Dog are currently engaged in litigation regarding the words spin and spinning. Wow. Do you think those kind of generic words should be trademarked?
Well, do I think, or what does the law think? Personally, I'm very neutral when it comes to IP. And IP laws change from country to country, so that might be tradable in some country, might not be tradable in others. But of course, you cannot stop, big company from doing what they do best, which is trying to make the money and trying to own the marketplace. So this is actually very, very common. You have companies just trademarking everything because they want to make sure that they own the whole space. And some they might not even use the trademark, but will just go and trademark it. For example, Apple. There was a case very interesting with Apple and another company in China that was manufacturing some product that we call Air. I think there were some watch that were called Air. They say now you cannot use that because Apple own everything that has to do with Apple, with MacBook Air, all of that. They own all of that.
Hold on, stop. No, hold on. Did I just hear you say that they're arguing about air?
Everything, my friend, everything. You'll be
So Apple
surprised.
owned, so Apple owned Apple, their own core, Apple Skin,
Ma-
Coke,
ma-
air.
Everything. So you'll be
Only,
surprised.
yeah,
You'll be
tis.
surprised actually. One of the stuff that some of those big corporations actually want to
Wow.
patent and protect. And I think at one point, a very funny case was actually Nestle. At one point, when I said we weren't gonna patent air or some water, something ridiculous like that. They're like, we're gonna own water. Everybody that needs to use water, they need to pay us.
Oh man.
People need to pay for fresh air. I mean, whenever there's money to be made, you can expect a big company to try to, milk it, even if it's very, unethical. But they will just trying to do what they do, which is, make as much money as possible and look after the shareholders.
So where do you draw the line then? So going back to this question about spin and spinning, I mean, those are everyday words. So if somebody trademark it now, what they're gonna have to charge me every time I say spin or spinning? What I mean, I don't get what the argument is. How do you I mean,
I mean,
help me.
they usually, the way it works, okay, if they have the trademark, so you can be using that word in a commercial context. So a very good case was the Donald Trump before he became president, and the word "you are fired." So if you remember that Donald Trump used to have that word on the Apprentice show, "you are fired," and it was actually, I believe he had a trademark, and people could not use that on TV. If you were to use it on TV, it could actually be in a position where he can actually go and sleep because of he had
So
that
let me ask a
trademark.
question then, just so I understand where the fine line. So you are fired, right? He's trademarked that. So what happens if I say, "Excuse me, you are fired"?
Well, as long
Now,
as I mean, as long as not in a commercial setting, and there's, of course, before they're trying to tell you, okay, you have to pay something because you're infringing somebody trademark or somebody IP. They will think about, is it worth it? And yeah, I mean, if you were to say that in front of an audience of a couple of millions, they might come and knock your door, say, hey, you never know. So there's always like, it's, uh, to be honest, some company that's what they do. They just bully people with trademark and the IP. They say, okay, you infringe me there, you infringe me here. Okay, you need to pay, and they do that between themselves. So they don't always focus on the little guys, but you never know. You never know. So you always have to, walk on your toes.
fair enough.
Is it ethical? Is it fair? Well, not always. Unfortunately, that's the way the world is.
So it
Not
sounds like
always
there
fair.
might be a business opportunity for somebody out there who wants to go and pick up a dictionary and just go through all the words,
Yeah,
trademark them all, and just come out with them.
talking about that, we had a very interesting case. It was a last year movement,
Right. Okay.
and we had a citizen here in the UK that wanted to trademark that word. And literally, what
Okay.
the IP office they say, they actually put a notice out there. Okay, this guy wants to trademark Black Lives Matter. Do you guys have anything to say about it? And now there was such an outrage online. People say, "Oh, there does it," and the individual that wanted to trade Black Lives Matter happened to be Caucasian, happened to be white Englishman, and yes, so you can imagine how that went down. It went down
Of
very good.
course.
So
All right. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I'm learning a lot. I'm just learning a lot also where there's lots of grey lines, and also I believe there's like a 5 year usually. Well, I think is that to do with patents? Correct me if I'm right here, but if you put in like for a patent or a trademark, then usually there's like a 5 year gap for somebody to contend it or something like that. Or
yes, you usually have a period of from the time you do the application. So they're gonna bring the application now. Then there's this period for anybody to come and contend either your trademark or your patent. And usually, if nobody does, then okay, you're free to go. You're free to add a patent. That patent will be given to you. That trademark will be given to you.
awesome. All right. So thank you very much. Thank you for that question, BB Clement. Hey, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. We also have another question here from Agnes Wanja. Hey, Agnes. So what happens if you have a popular name? Can you still protect it?
Well, of course, the first thing first, you need to check if that name hasn't been, trademark yet. Of course, depend on what you want to do with that name. If you want to protect your name so you can sell, you can use it for commerce. For example, I don't know, maybe you want to choose or you want to sell clothes to make sure that name hasn't been trademarked in the same category and the same region. So, for example, you want to trade Ade, you need to Ade for clothing, Ade
No,
clothes.
Ade's too common. No, 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 no,
You need to
no.
make
It's
you
your
need to make
prayer.
sure that nobody has trademark a clothing brand for Ade, for nobody has a classification on trademark for Ade. So usually you need to check the IP office and if you're not able to check that, you can have a lawyer. We have a bunch of guys on our platform that can help you do that. You need to do that check to make sure that name is clear. If that name is clear, then you can go and apply for it. That doesn't guarantee that you're gonna be given the trademark. That the application will go through, but if you don't try, you never know.
So let me ask another question around that. Let's say somebody's name is Peter Welsh, right? And they want to go and get their name, and it's quite clear that somebody called Roger Brown has got his name, right? How would that work out? Because it's clear that one of them is the identity and one of them is not the identity. In that case, would they have the right to be able to contend to get their name back?
I mean, as long as the other guy is not using the name, then they can say, look, this guy protected this name, but it's not using it for any purpose. Usually trademarks, if you own a trademark, you need to put it to use. And if you don't put it to use, then after a certain, you're just gonna lose it because for that particular reason. Because people end up trademarking. There's only that many words, in the English language and any other language that we can use for business purpose. Of course, we can create like abstract word, like I don't know, Tinder doesn't really mean anything, or some other stuff that
Or
comes to my
Google,
mind,
Google.
or Google. and
Google.
Google. So you can always with abstract word. That's why even sometimes for brand name they tend to always say it's always better to use an abstract name rather than a name that's actually a common name or common word. And yeah, of course, if that guy doesn't use that particular name, then of course you can say, look, it's not using it. I'm looking to use it for business purpose, and then you can try to fight it and try to have your application approved.
All right, awesome, great stuff. And I think this BB again. So trademarks also extend beyond words. E.g., Tiffany blue is a particular shade of blue that you cannot use. Wow.
Yes, you'd be surprised the type of trademarks out there. So so many things. I mean, the spectrum is very from could be literally anything. Of course, you have also trademark. You have design as well. They kind of sometimes meet in the middle. For example, like logos. Some of the logos. For example, the Apple. We all know the Apple. You can't have the Apple anywhere. And anything that looks like the Apple, you might get sued by Apple. So we have to be, always get some help. Get some support. Double check before you file anything, and make sure you have somebody checking, somebody that knows what he's doing, checking for you. And yeah, before you go ahead and pay the money, you never seize your money again, because of course once you pay those fees to the intellectual property office, they're gonna say, well, sorry, you cannot do it, and thank you for paying the fees.
Cool. So in your experience, what three things would you recommend somebody who's watching this right now might consider before they start sharing their ideas freely?
Well, once upon a time, it used to be all about the NDA. So if you're gonna share, then of course you cannot have NDA with everybody. So nowadays, what you can do and what our platform allow people to do is to quickly copyright your idea before you actually start sharing with people. So if you think that your idea has any value, or that's an idea that you might want to exploit in the future, so what you can go to our platform. You can literally just take about 5 minutes. You write your idea down on a piece on a Word document. This is my idea. You write a copy description. Then you can upload that. You can copyright the idea. It doesn't take much. And of course, and after you can go and talk to whatever you want to talk. And if they decide to come up with a similar idea, you have a proof that say, hey, you were the first one to come up with this idea. And for even further protection, of course, depending on what's your relationship with that person, you may want to share an NDA with them before you share the idea. So if that person is a third party that you want to explore the business opportunity with them or the business idea with them, you may want to share an NDA. If you're just a friend, then you definitely don't need an NDA unless you think you might want to steal your idea. But having that proof that that copyrighted statement that okay, you were the first one to come up with that idea, that's your best line in case of people that.
So let me see if I've understood you correctly. So what you're saying is that anybody who's watching this right now, if they've got an idea, they should go away, write it up in a Word document, and that through your platform, which I will show in a moment and we'll discuss a little bit more, they can just simply upload that. So I'm assuming that when they upload that, it'll be date and time stamped. So it says at this point in time and this day, so-and-so came with this idea and just submitted it. It sits in there. And then if they go out and share it and somebody says, wow, that's a good idea, tell me more, and then they try and go and run with it, that person who had the original idea can whatever, go back and
actually, can go back, say
and pull that. All right, got it.
So that's literally the best way. It works for not just idea, music, could be anything. Could be a design, it could be song, music, it could be something that we're written. If you're into poetry or writing songs, maybe you share the lyric with somebody. There's somebody to your bars, if you writing bars and all that. Anything. It's very important. That's the easiest way to do it, and that's the cheapest way to do it, the most affordable way to do it.
Okay, and we're going to explore that a bit more, but I'm glad that you said that, because one of the biggest challenges I had for years was I used to have ideas, and I wouldn't necessarily share them with people because my biggest fear, or I thought it was my biggest fear, was that actually somebody's going to take the idea and run with it. And I can't remember where it was. It might have been at a Tony Robbins event or one of those type of events where I was sharing that with somebody, and it was like, yeah, well, if that's the case, just share your idea with people. And I'm like, well, you're crazy. Well, I'm going to share my ideas and people just run off with it. They say, well, yeah, if people choose to do that, they'll do that anyway. But however, it'll generate more ideas for you. So I got myself into that habit, and some people run with it, whatever. And other times you get something good. But what I'm hearing now, there's even an easier way. Because I remember back in the days, guess how they used to tell us to do it? They used to say, write
So
it
the
down on a
post,
piece of paper.
send it
Yeah,
to the
that's it.
post.
Put it in an envelope and send it back to yourself. There you go. One of those ones.
That
Great
was
stuff.
back. That was back in the day, and before the post, it was a telegram. You don't need to send a telegram to yourself. But that was like about the 100 years ago. And
Wow.
yeah,
Awesome.
before technology got to where we are, and we can kind of do it in a couple of minutes through a computer.
Great stuff. So let me just quickly, with some of the people who are watching out there, just because this still might be saying, I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can still hear me. Right, can you still hear us? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
All right, so this is your
Loud and clear.
website, right?
It
So this
is.
is your website. So in effect, people can just simply go here, find out about your services. So tell me more about what you do here in terms of your services. What are these range of services that you provide in addition?
So what we're trying to be, we're building a platform that's gonna make it easier for anybody just to make the most of the IP. So the first stage, as you say, you want to protect the idea to make sure that nobody steals the idea. Then of course the next stage is okay. Now that my idea is protected, where do I go? Who do I talk to? Do I need to maybe file a trademark or maybe file a patent, depending if I'm designing something that's very innovative, or who do I need to talk to next? So when it comes to the life cycle of the IP as an asset itself, there's a bunch of service that you need. Lawyers that specialize in IP is one of them. You might need an insurance, for your IP asset. If you maybe is now that have a huge collection of art, of design that have value to you, you might need to put an insurance to that. You might be a business that work in the creative sector. You might be a musician. You need to protect just your collection of songs and all the create have maybe beats, etc., etc. So all those services you're gonna need that relate to your IP service. All those specialists that you're gonna need to talk to, you can find on our platform. Because the thing about IP, the truth models of IP is when it comes to the IP market, intellectual property market, it's very fragmented. So you might know one person, but you might not know the other person. You might not know the next service, where to go next. And we can bring all of that into one platform to make it easier for everybody, for anybody, just to be able to manage the IP like any big company would do, any big firm would do. So if you like big corporation, they have a bunch of people that only focus on managing the IP. But if you're the small person, a small guy, small business owner, you might not have that lawyer, that accountant, that specialist, and you might not be able to find those people in your network. So if you come to our platform, all those people you might need for that particular purpose, you will find on our platform.
Awesome. So it sounds like, in effect, that what you do is you provide a one-stop shop. And one of the things that I think I picked up just there from what you were saying, which to me sounds like a great piece of benefit, is it's sounding like an individual doesn't even need to know whether or not it's a copyright, trademark, trade secret, a patent that they might need initially. All they've got to do, first things first, is to just initially just upload that idea into the portal, and then that just secures it to say that's their idea. And then after they get some legal advice or whatever service that they need relevant to the business within that context, then they can get that done. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. First step, protect idea. Second step, look what all the service you need to do, who you need to talk to next. Now, platform, we got lawyers, we got insurers, we got accounting people that understand IP, that specialize in IP. And of course, as our network of service growing, there's so much more that you'll be able to do. And yeah, just making it easier for anyone. Because of course, I remember back in the day when I was at university, I had a great idea. I had a great project I was working on, engineering project. I was looking to design something. Then I'm like, okay, where do I start? How do I go about protecting it? How much cost me? Who do I need to talk to? And like most people, life is busy as it is, especially in London. And before you know, you start thinking about all the moving part, and before you know, you end up not doing it, and you just like giving up. So I want to stop people. I want to make it easier for everybody because it happens to me, it happens to a bunch of people that I know, and it happens to a lot of people that I'm talking to. It's just like, oh, I don't know where to start. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know when to call, who to call. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that. You just protect your idea first, and after that, everything you need is on our platform. If you need anything that we can find on the platform, drop us a message on the platform. We'll get that for you.
Awesome. We really got a couple of questions coming in. So let me just quickly show you the website. Here's where you go and get it. So that's sipmanagement.co.uk. Sipmanagement.co.uk. Go there, check it out. And also, Marshall's primarily giving you a promo code. So if you go there, put in circulate 10 to use the services, you'll also get yourself a nice, decent discount on there. So once again, all you got to do is pop over to sipmanagement.co.uk, put in the promo code circulate 10, and then you are good to go. And yeah, it's just great hearing you talking about that, because it reminded me. So for many years, and like I said, at different points, when I look now, I recognize I was making excuses for myself. I don't know what to do with this idea. I don't want anybody to know about it, so I'm not going to share it. I mean, which in effect doesn't make sense, because in order to take an idea to a place of fruition, you're going to need to involve somebody. You're going to need to involve people, whether it's suppliers. You need to tell customers. So holding that idea in didn't really make sense. But I did many things like that for many years. And over time, as I grew, I recognized that really underlying it was kind of fear, right? That fear
It
of
is fear.
failure.
It's always
It's that
fear. It's always
fear
fear.
of rejection, the fear, oh my gosh, I'm going to fall on my face. Yeah. I mean, how many people watching this right now can relate to that? It's that fear that holds us back, and we create different excuses. But what I like about this is it's a very simple, small step that somebody can take to at least eliminate that part of the fear, right? Before they move on to addressing other aspects as well. So I think that's very powerful, very cool, and very great. Let me even share an idea that I had. I'm going to share this idea.
Go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
I
Go
had this
ahead, bro.
idea once, which was about padlocks. It was about using, like when you travel, right? And you have travel padlocks. Sometimes you can't find the key. So there's a clear problem right there. My idea was actually, why can't you have a padlock which actually you can use an app to just open? So you don't really need a key. It's an electronic one, but also it has a tracking system on it. So if you lose your luggage, you can actually track it through your app as well. You can open it. I went for the whole process. Me and my partner at the time went for the whole process. Went to look for a pattern, couldn't get the pattern. Started looking at, taking it forward, and then just came a few little challenges, and then guess what? Stepped off, gave up. And all of a sudden I see the product all around, and people are making millions of it. It's one of those ones. I'm sure many people are like, oh, that's my idea.
It's one of those ones. And what happens usually is that, of course, if you don't have a network of people that can help you, and that's, I think that's a key word. And now some people have better network than others. Some people come from different background when they know people that know people, and that's not always the case. And most of the best ideas don't come from people that know people. They tend to come from people that don't know anyone. And just I believe by providing such a platform as we build, it make it easy, make it accessible to people, and it's all about giving access to people that otherwise wouldn't have the access. For example, in your case, you had the idea, but you didn't know who to talk to. What probably the best way to approach it. You didn't have that network of people that can support you to take the idea to the next stage, especially such an innovative idea. And I believe it's all about having that network, and that's what we're trying to provide to people through our platform.
I love that. I mean, one of the key things is having that network. So that's why now I have coaches in different areas of my life, and it's building that network. Like you said, people like you who know how to do this stuff, who are doing it, and providing simple solutions, which can just give people like me brain space, which is, okay, I don't even need to worry about that no more. It's there, safe. I can get on with some of my other ideas, and then, if I come back to this in 5 years' time and it's there, fine. And if somebody gets the idea in 5 years' time, but wants to pay me for it. Actually, let me ask you another question then. So here's one that's always kind of been on my mind. What happens if I come up with an idea, register it now, right? Somebody somewhere else across the world, because ideas can be, shared anywhere, comes up with the same idea, right? Independently, even after me, and then gets on with it. We've never had any contact. How does that work for the person and they get into an argument about it?
Of course, for you have to prove that they stole the idea from you.
Got it.
If you cannot prove that they stole the idea from you, then they will run with the idea.
Awesome. So we got a little comment here as well. Another comment here. So antidote, domain name registration is an important area to watch. A group of guys had just closed a multi-million-pound deal and was celebrating very loudly in a restaurant. The guy at the next table asked them to please keep it down. They were very rude to him and refused. Unfortunately, as they were talking loudly, they mentioned the name of the company. He took out his phone and checked the domain name, which they had not yet registered. He quickly registered it and went over to their table and showed them. End of business deal. Oh, wow. So there you go. They should have registered it on your site first before they went in.
That usually works, and of course. But the other thing about domain name, of course, depend on the where you base on. Laws tend to be different. For example, here in the UK, the copyright and domain and laws kind of different to maybe America. So I don't think that I don't know if that is history happening here in the UK, but we have to be very less like cool. You never know. As I say, never know. But yeah, just
All right, so let's talk about
careful
as we start wrapping up as well. So you're providing so much great value, so many insights. You're helping expand my thinking as well. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you very much. So you use blockchain, right? So,
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
so for those who are watching who might not be aware of what blockchain is, what is it, and why have you opted for that technology?
So the blockchain per se is a ledger, as they call it, is a group of computers, a technology based around computer working together, and to in order to achieve efficiency. The reason why we decide to use blockchain technology because it makes some of the process that we're trying to achieve a lot cheaper and affordable. For example, in terms of copyright protection, blockchain is the perfect tool when it comes to protecting copyrighted intangibles in general. And of course, through blockchain, there's so much more that we can do in order to transfer the value of intangible. Because if you look at, for example, IP, how do you transfer IP? You might have to do it through paperwork, write a contract, send somebody a contract, start by person sign a contract. Then you need to keep the contract somewhere, maybe scan it. If you're able to code that value that's created, you can put it in code. You can save it on the blockchain for efficiency purpose. Then you can share it with different people in a more efficient, faster, and cheaper way. So the reason why we use blockchain is because it enables us to provide more affordable service, better service, and at a more affordable price. And that's the reason why we chose this particular technology.
Awesome. I mean, blockchain is an interesting piece of technology that I've been following for many years. Obviously, blockchain is one of the key technological, excuse me, components that made Bitcoin, digital currencies, Ethereum, all those things possible. And the potential as a secure ledger, i.e., a place whereby when something's documented, is replicated in so many different places, you can't counterfeit it. You can't. It just becomes like a state stamp time in space and time. In effect, makes it so powerful, right? For land registry, for
It
ID,
is for
these
the
things.
potential for blockchain and all that, they're very unique. And of course, what we're looking to take our project, we're still early stage on our platform. Now, what we're looking to expand our project in a way that where actually people can use the IP to raise capital. Because of course many artists they don't have any collateral, so you don't have it, but you can use your piece of work, your creation, your brand, maybe as a collateral for you to maybe to raise a business loan, and which is something that's very important for people that work in the creative industry, where everything they create is mostly intangible, it's mostly IP. So that's something that we're looking to bring in the near future to our platform. So our users they'll be able to use the IP to raise capital for the project. And in the meantime, we're looking to we have a shop that we're talking to, and that can offer IP based loans and other IP financial solutions.
So let's explore that. When you say IP-based loans and IP-based financial solutions, what does that mean? Let me see if I've no. You tell me what I think I just heard.
So, for example, let's say you were looking for a business loan,
Yep.
and then you might be required a collateral. So, in order for that one to be more affordable, and most of the time, the collateral that's required is usually a house. But IP and it actually enables you to use your IP rights. So, if you own a trademark, if you have
You appear to
of
be cutting
copyrights,
out. Is that just me?
if
Is that you?
you own a couple of patents, and you can use those as
You appear to be cutting out. Let me see if it's my headphones. Yeah. So, Marshall, I think we might be losing you because you seem to be cutting out. And I think he was just about to share the idea that's on the money right there. Can you hear me, Marshall? Can anybody hear me? If you can hear me, please tap in the group. The So to anybody who's listening right now, if you can hear me, please tap into the chat because I think I've lost Marshall and I hope I haven't lost you guys. Okay, have you lost me still? Am I back? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think we've lost Marshall, but I'm wondering if you guys can still hear me. Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Marshall? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Not hear me? 1 second.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly now.
You can hear me. Yeah, you were cutting out.
Is it better now?
Much better, much better. Right, like I said, I'm keen to get what you were saying there. So you're talking about potentially getting loans or expand on what you was talking about there,
Yes.
please.
So the idea is to be able to provide finance for people that have businesses based on intangibles. So people that work in the creative industries, art, cinema, movie, music. Sometimes those people are not able to get the financing that they need because of course the type of business that they have. The business model creative is very uncertain, and it's not always like the old business model that banks prefer to lend to. So the idea is to, of course, to provide them like an alternative finance through intellectual property that enable them to really to get the money they need to grow their business and expand. And that's something that we will looking to do, using, of course, blockchain technology moving forward. And in the meantime, what we are doing is bringing on some partners into our platform that specialize in providing IP loans and other type of IP-backed financing.
So let me see if I've understood what I think I just understood. And I'm sure you'll correct me and help me with my understanding. So are you saying it's possible for somebody to have an idea alone, just have the idea, and in effect raise funding against that? I guess a bit like Kickstarter, right? Because in effect that might be an example of it. Is it
More,
something
more,
similar or is it
yeah,
different?
it is similar, but more than the idea, you need to have the right. So once you have the idea protected, so you either have that trademark, you have that patent, and if this idea was okay, if it's art, so you have all your arts copyright, and you also have your name as an artist trademark, you can use that as a collateral to raise capital.
It's interesting, and yes, and that should come with a word of caution as well. It's interesting when you was talking about that because it reminded me of Kodak's demise. Now, many people don't recognize that Kodak were the first company to come up with digital imaging in terms of digital camera. But because they were so relying heavily on their existing business model, they concluded, this ain't gonna fly. And I think word has it that they sold it to something like a company like Instagram or one of those other people, right? But in the end, the bottom line being digital videoing, digital recording was part of the demise of Kodak. They didn't adapt to that market in time. They created technology and they thought, no, this ain't nothing. And then they sold it away. So just be careful about how quickly you get rid of your IP as well.
IP, exactly. I mean, the best option is always to like to rent it, to license it, or of
Gotcha.
course, if you're gonna get some money against it, make sure that you get money that you can pay back, so you can get your IP back. Because of course, if somebody is willing to give you money for your IP, it's because they see value in your IP. And yeah, if you know that that's something that you want to keep working on, definitely get a proper deal for it.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, this is one of the reasons also why I love shows like this, learning new things, because I don't know if people can see it in my face, but just as you're speaking, and my mind's just like, oh my gosh, like you can rent your idea, you can sell your idea. It's sounding a bit like property, like no money down. It's
It
like,
is. It is actually
wow.
the. This is where the beauty of it, especially in the UK, where
Oh,
people love property investment, and naturally IP is the only other asset class that kind of behave like property, but even better.
okay.
I so right now people are all over property, and of course now you can use blockchain to actually to make property investment more affordable to everybody. But IP is really the next stage up. IP now is just it's like property, but 10 times better. The same benefit, the same benefit, and the value of IP can increase a lot more than the value of property. So IP can go from 1 to 100 very quickly, or to 1 million even. Property cannot. That's only that much value a property can gain within your lifespan. But IP, we're talking another story. We're talking another story.
So for anybody out there who can see the potential, you see how I got a big smile on my face. I'm like a little child in a candy shop right now. It's just like, wow, right? There's the website. So in effect, what I'm hearing there is you can come up with an idea. You can initially go there to register it, speak to some of the experts around how you should then go away to get it, protected legally. And in effect, if you're sitting on something that's got potential, at some point you can have a raise funding for you to be able to build your business around it just on the base of the idea, right? You can lease the idea to somebody to say, hey, you want to borrow my idea? okay, I read it for you, right? That's great. And then you get it back when later on down the line, or like you could just sell the thing, the idea, the pattern, and whatever. So, and look at that. It's just other than it sounding like the money required to register. Once you've got the right direction, then you can just go away and do what you're doing and wait for somebody to call you and say, hey, you got something I'm interested in.
Exactly, and that's a strategy that many company actually use. So many people around the world, inventors, they just invent and sit on it, and somebody will come one day say, "I want to use it." Say, "Yeah, how much would you pay me for?" And of course, we try and make that not because that's kind of a niche thing, but we try and bring it to everybody. And my passion is to bring it to particular creative, creative from our community, and of course, people that really needs it. And yeah, the possibility are infinite. The
Wow.
world is a big place, and once you understand how to really leverage your IP, you can do so much for yourself, and that's something that you can pass on to your children later on down the line. Because of course, that brand, we all know about brands that have been around for thousands of years. Some of the oldest brand in UK, actually, the first trademark in the UK date from 1876, when they have when they open the IP office open in London. That was in London before 1876, and it was a beer brand actually. And some of the even the oldest brand like Stella Artois. If I don't know, maybe some of you guys know the beer brand date from
Yeah.
1336. So 1300 from the 1300. So those brands have just been building value throughout the years and the century. So yeah,
All right.
once you own the IP, yeah, you can really milk it.
Wow. I mean, yeah, exciting. It's just that I'm just like, whoa, wow. That's awesome. So as we start wrapping up, who is the ideal end user for your platform, and what types of benefits or value can they get from using your platform and the related services?
So our end users, as our platform stand, we have a lot of creative people that work in the creative industry, as I mentioned before, and a lot of small businesses. The way businesses use our platform is usually to protect usually trademark. So if most businesses, as you probably know, many of them they have brand, but they don't protect those brands. So businesses use our platform to protect the brand. It could be most of the time they tend to be product brands and or either the name of the company. They want to trademark the name of the company, as I mentioned before. Other than that, we have a lots of creative, and because creative are so important, because if you're an artist, you create. It could be art, it could be drawings. You can copyright your drawing. Then of course you can go to trademark your the name your name as an artist, which is something that we often recommend to people because you never know where your art can be in 20, 30 years time. So creative enjoy a lot of platform, and of course businesses. So if your business a small business or a creative person or somebody that work in the creative industry, definitely our platform will be a very great use to you. If you create music, every time you create your lyrics or your new beats, you're afraid somebody might steal it before you share with your mate. Okay, check it out, listen to it. You may want to protect it. As we got some people that do that on platform, you protect your beat, then you share it with people. Then you know that nobody's gonna steal your beat. If you're writing lyrics, you got a book, something that's a manuscript. Before you share with somebody, yeah, protect it. Then share it with them. If you love the feedback, then you can take it to the next level. So to be honest, truly honest with you, I mean, creative, small businesses, those are the people that our platform will build for.
Wow, awesome. And it sounds like also it's not necessarily then closed to anybody who hasn't got a business, who hasn't started yet, but just comes up with an idea.
With an
So if you're
idea, yeah.
washing, you're driving, you're having a shower, you're doing whatever you're doing, you have an idea that you feel, oh, potentially this might be something. In effect, you can just go to the website. So the website again here, SIP management, and just store your idea there, right? So at least you've got it timestamped there. You don't need to think about how you get it started and all the other things that we allow our mind to take us through that then stops us. I don't know about you, but I'm like that. If I overthink a situation, it gets dangerous. It's just like, oh, I can't move. So and knowing that action is the antidote. For now, at least you got an avenue where you can go dump these things, and you never know. Hey, whoever knows, you don't know what it might be worth in years to come. And finally, do you want to make the offer that you want to make to people about if they sign up today?
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned, the way our platform work, we provide a certain service. We do subscription, and as I mentioned to your listener today, people listening to us, we have a 10% discount to anybody that sign up today. It could be for either a copyright protection, so to protect idea, or either for any of our trademark services. And I just invite people to just to learn a bit more about IP. We have an amazing blog post. If you want to learn more, you can go out there, read the story that we have. You will learn a lot about copyright, trademark, and about what IP means to you, you know. And yeah, just learn, go out there, protect your ideas, you know, get your business trademark, start building a brand that can grow over time, protect your trademark, protect your brand. It's very important. And it's very important for people to really understand, you know, how valuable that is in terms of long-term success of the business. Get that trademark, get IP protected. And yeah, if you need any help, we're here to, you know, to help and support you.
Awesome. Love that. Speaking personally as a business coach who works with large organizations and startups, I know that many in the coaching industry, sometimes you get a few who, you know, because you're delivering and giving advice, after a while, you can get caught up in what it is you think you know and just constantly pushing that. One of the things I love about this situation here is, and that's why I love this platform, is it enables me to learn from other people. There's so much I've learned today about intellectual property and actually the potentials and how you can actually monetize it. It's just like, wow, I didn't know those things. And this is why I, in my business life, in my personal life, in my spiritual life, have various coaches and mentors, people who have tried and tested, who have done it, who know the way, who can help me to shorten my path as well. And what that means for you as well is, if you're watching this right now, wherever you're stuck, right, it's always advisable, look around. There's some people who know some stuff that you just don't know. There's some people that can significantly help shorten the path that you're on in order to achieve the end goal that you're looking for. There's always somebody or something out there that can support you in it. So I encourage you to get into that, because we began speaking at the beginning about the mind. We're talking about intellectual property. The mind generates intellectual property, but you need to make sure that the mind is constantly working, and don't worry about what you don't know. Find coaches, people out there can support you in achieving the outcomes that you want. So, Marshall, really appreciate this. Once again, that's the promo
All day,
code.
it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed spending this time. And of course, you and me will probably get to have a conversation another time.
Look at my face. What do you reckon? Like, of course, we're gonna have a conversation.
Definitely gonna have a lot more conversations on the back room. So yeah, definitely. It was a
Definitely.
pleasure. Of course, thank you for people that took the time to be here with us and to pose the question.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you very much. Yeah, thank you very much to all the listeners. Once again, there's there's um, uh, Marshall's Insta. You can go there, right, and follow him. You've got the website. You've got the promo code. So, like I said, we aim to educate, motivate, inspire. Hopefully, you've been inspired today. So, remember to follow. Did I put all the stuff here? I haven't got it up. Anyway, you can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook, Circulate as well. On Instagram, Circulate the Black Pound. So, yeah, I mean, just be there, right? And just let me leave this with you. Like I said, so at this moment in time, I'm going kind of through this. How can I put it? Would I call it like a transformation? Yeah, transformation. Do you know, it's that process where you stop and you start looking at yourself and your life, and you look at where have I been allowing myself to get stuck? And one of the things that I can see in my own life is, you know what? Everything that I want sits outside of my comfort zone. Everything that because whatever we've done so far, we've done. That's becomes part of our comfort zone. But the things that we really aspire to and really want sit outside our comfort zone. And what usually stops us from moving from our comfort zone to outside the comfort zone? Fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear we're going to get it wrong, fear that we're going to lose everything. All of those things which cause us to play small. Play in that space where we're already at. So what I'm encouraging you to do, which is actually start pushing out, start breaking out, start taking small steps, whatever those might look like, in order to realize what your dreams are. Because I mean, there's so much fulfillment, so much joy on the other side. And guess what happens once we push our comfort zones? That comfort zone, your comfort zone expands, and then you need to push out again and push out again. I think there's been some great piece of information, and it might not be for everyone. Great. But hopefully there's something that you've taken from this that's going to ignite some form of passion in you. It's going to inspire you to recognize and see inside yourself and see, actually, you know what? I can do this, whatever that looks like. You know, we're moving into a changing world. The world is changing rapidly, which presents so much opportunity. And so, yeah, to Marshall's point, you know, just think about it like this, and I'll leave you with this. Each one of us has been given some form of blessed talent from God, even if we don't recognize it. And in each one of us can inspire somebody. There's somebody in our lives around us who just need that spark, and we can be that person. For some of us, and some of you watching right now, you've got a message, you've got a product, you've got a service that could inspire and change millions of people's lives. If we succumb to our fear, If we play small because of our fear, then I will leave it with you that we're being selfish. So maybe we just got to push through that. And it can be scary doing it alone, so it's always great to find people who can support you on that journey. So once again, Marshall, really appreciate that. To your listeners out there,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you very much for joining. For everyone who's participated in the conversation, really appreciate it. And we'll be back next week with another guest to educate, motivate, and inspire you in business and beyond. So on that note, just leave you with that, and have a good evening, all.